This SUV may look decent, but don't let that fool you. I've got a leaking steering rack, squishy brake pedal, and an extensive list of ticking time bomb parts that need attention. Let's assess my 2005 Toyota Sequoia and dig into the things that it really needs. Coming up. I'm Drew and this is Evergreen Overland. On this channel we do gear reviews, showcase vehicle mods, and talk about ways that overlanders can outfit themselves for adventure. In my last video, we talked about why the first generation Toyota Sequoia makes such a good platform to consider building a family overland adventure vehicle. Today we're going to be talking about the condition of my actual SUV and discuss what we're going to be doing to get it to a reliable baseline. Apologies, this video jumps around a little bit in time because as I was editing the video, I kind of changed what I wanted the video to be about. So we're going to just take it from there. Okay, so I'm sitting here, the wife took the kids, giving me a little bit of time to get some stuff done around the house, video, whatever I want to get done. And I'm looking around my garage at the backup battery system full of stuff that I've had purchased for, well, since like mid-2022. I'm looking at the Jetboil I just reviewed right here. And I'm looking at the pile on this 8-foot long table here of, I don't know, thousands of dollars worth of suspension and maintenance components and upgrades for the Sequoia. And I reach into my back pocket and I pull out a handful of old graham crackers that I snagged out of my kid's cup holder as I was throwing them in the car seat. And I just realized, like, there's no freaking time to do any of this YouTube stuff in the real world. So at the end of the day, I just need to get content out. And what that means is I gotta kind of shoot down and dirty, and I hope you guys are okay with that. Let me know down in the comments section. What do you even care about B-roll? Do you just want to see information as long as the sound quality is decent? Good to go? Like, do you just want to get to know me, or do you want me to do more vehicle tutorial stuff? Or I don't know. You guys let me know what kind of videos you want to see down in the comment section. Things that I touched on in the first video, why the first generation Toyota Sequoia are such a good platform, I think, for, I hate the word budget, but a value overlanding SUV. Well, it shares a lot of those same attributes with the first generation Sequoia over there. They're super capable rigs. They're Toyotas, so they are super reliable rigs. They both got the 5.7 liter V8 engine. Nice having that V8 power. Very known engines, very tried and true engines. They both have four-wheel drive. The Tundras have limited slip differentials as an option in the rear where the Sequoias don't, but the Sequoias have a center locking differential. Geared somewhat low. I don't know what the gearing is actually on the lowest side of it. A low gear, right? A low transfer case. So let's talk about this 2005 Toyota Sequoia. I bought it from a guy in a wealthier area of King County. He tells me that he basically bought the thing to do a trip down to California with his family, threw some tires on it, did some brakes, did some general maintenance, drove down to California, drove it back, and for the most part, it just sat in his barn for 5 years after that point. Sold it to me for $5,500, 250,000 miles on it right now. I don't know how much I've driven it, 5,000 miles since I bought it, maybe a little more. And this thing, prior to him, did have a pretty decent maintenance history performed by the dealership on it. So, you know, it just tells me that it's in pretty good shape. Frame is just basic surface rust, so that's something you always got to look at. This thing's looking pretty good. Your typical driver's seat wear and tear, but nothing honestly that bad. The TPMS sensors probably need to be replaced because I'm throwing a code there, but aesthetically and engine code wise, it's in really, really good shape. Now, as far as mechanically speaking on this thing, really nothing outside of general or preventative maintenance that needs to get done at this point. The steering rack is leaking. I was able to talk the guy down a little bit from his asking price based on that. I've already got sitting in the shop one for both the Tundra and for the Sequoia from freelancefab.com. That's FR33, not EE, LANCEFAB.com. And I'll just say this video is brought to you by them and give them a little plug. The owner over there, Lance, does completely OEM rebuilt steering racks and pumps. They just do a ton of different stuff to support these first gen platforms. So if you're looking for anything maintenance wise, upgrade wise, go check them out because he's a solid dude. I've known him for a very long time and they just do an awesome job. I've taken this thing up into the mountains quite a few times just for some shakedown runs. It did pretty well in the shakedown run. Yeah, the suspension is clapped out. It needs to be redone. All right, it's a couple hours later. Kids came home. Had to do the whole bedtime thing, so now they're both asleep and I can continue doing this. Yeah, so next it's really just talking about my build prioritization matrix, what I'm gonna do first, what I'm gonna do second. First and foremost, it's really about establishing a maintenance baseline because top priority on this is just not getting stranded somewhere. Like whether you're on a road trip somewhere or you're 20 miles off the beaten path, either reason, an issue arising with the vehicle being non-maintained or non-preventatively maintained is really not acceptable. So although sometimes it's not considered the funnest way to spend your money, I think the most important thing to do whenever you get an older vehicle like this is get it up to a proper maintenance baseline, which includes any neglected maintenance that maybe needs to get done or any maintenance that you're just not sure was done properly or done in the last, recommended timeline of things. You gotta take a look at all the common failure points and common maintenance things with whatever vehicle you decide to go with and tackle those first. In that same line of maintenance and preventative maintenance, I throw the opportunistic upgrade kind of category, which would be things like you're going to go in and you're going to, do the brakes and the rotors and refresh the whole braking system. At that point, you really might as well see if there's any upgrades to the componentry that you might be able to make to improve the performance in that category. All right, you know what? It's too cold. I'm going to have to finish this up tomorrow or another day, so I'll be back. So first things first, let me just talk about what I do when I get a new vehicle to kind of establish its baseline so I know that the maintenance and the serviceability and the reliability of the vehicle is at least a known commodity from the point of me taking ownership of it onward. All the vehicles that I've bought to build out has been because I am a Toyota enthusiast. So for one reason or another, I'm a huge Toyota fan. Brother bought me this hat recently. Whenever I'm buying a new vehicle, I do a ton of research. I join all the Facebook groups. I find out all the common things that go wrong and diving into the specifics to just see the quirks and reliability and all that kind of stuff that those models have. Whenever I get a vehicle, I clean it as deeply as I possibly can, take a look at everything you possibly can, make notes on everything you possibly can that you see that might need to be addressed, and then just start putting together the game plan to do all the maintenance that you want to or that it needs to have happen to it. Before that even, you just have to assess kind of your mechanical skill level if you're going to be doing the work yourself or if you're going to be paying a shop to do it, and just at the very least, if you're paying a shop to do it, making sure that you kind of understand the work that's getting done. I guess just understand that they're not ripping you off. I've had pretty good luck with shops throughout the years, but I also do a lot of my own work. So I've gone the path of doing a lot of the work myself so that if something does happen out on the trail, when you're away from systems of support, you have at least the baseline knowledge to be able to assess what's happened to your vehicle if you're stranded, fix it yourself, or know that it's too much to fix yourself and you need to call in the cavalry, however that might be. Another thing that I do every time I get a vehicle is I get a notepad to keep track of everything you've done to the vehicle so that you know the durations of your oil changes, or maybe there's like a quirk about something with the vehicle that you want to document and kind of check back on, whatever it might be. Getting a notepad that lives in the vehicle so it's always there if it's me working on it, or eventually if I sell the thing, whoever takes it has that information at their fingertips as well. Okay, whether or not you're going to do the work on your vehicle yourself, disclaimer for sure, don't trust me for your mechanical advice. If you don't feel comfortable doing this stuff, don't do it. Hire a professional. But for me, I like working on the vehicles. It builds confidence, and like I mentioned before, it just gives you the ability to assess things if something goes wrong yourself, out on the trail. Okay, so over the years, I've built up a pretty good tool selection. Basically, behind the camera is my, shop tool setup, and everywhere around because I don't have that big of a shop. For this vehicle, I'm building out this Step 22 Pangolin Mini tool roll, and there's a link to the video I did talking about this thing. Not really the tools as much, but the tool roll here, and you can take a look at that. I decided I wanted to pare down my toolkit because I had a pretty substantial toolkit. I didn't weigh it before I tore it all down and scavenged it for pieces and parts for this thing. I'm wanting to pare down my toolkit to something semi-minimalistic, but still hopefully having the capabilities to do all the work that I would need to if something goes wrong. Not necessarily every single maintenance component or whatever. Like, I'm not gonna have necessarily every tool in here to do a timing belt or something like that, or something crazy, but definitely the tools to change an axle, definitely the tools to change a tire, fix electrical gremlins or whatever it might be out on the trail if I have them with my house battery system. So the goal with this toolkit, along with obviously some things that aren't gonna fit just based on ridiculous size to fit in any sort of tool roll, sledgehammers, pry bars, breaker bars, hold on. Properly rated and built to the height of your vehicle or whatever your height of your vehicle is going to be, jacks, is to utilize this toolkit as I go along doing all the services to get up to a reliable baseline on this, as well as a lot of the modifications. I might not use it for every single thing, but like I'm trying to proof of concept this kit here by, you know, adding the pieces that I need to as I come across them, taking away the pieces that I'm not gonna use or that I didn't use, so that I can make sure I have exactly what I need and hopefully less of what I don't or what I realistically won't need. Another thing every person needs to get their trusted service manual that they want to go with. Haynes or Chilton or whatever it is. Is it Chilton? I don't even have one up here for any other vehicle. So those are the two that are kind of standard out there. You can also download and keep on your phone like the standard Toyota service manual just to have that. A few more quick tips that I use. A white paint pen to mark your bolts just so you know immediately on a quick glance, you know, maybe doing a end of the day assessment on your vehicle, doing your research on what you really want to replace with OEM manufacturer parts, and what you might be able to save a little bit of money, you know, buying a non-manufacturer brand. You know, if you're replacing your coolant hoses, keeping your old coolant hose so that you have it that might be able to save your butt in a pinch. Axles, right? One of the goals, since both of my rigs are IFS front suspension rigs, and one of the weak points are definitely those CV axles, I kind of want to have one tucked away somewhere as a backup. All right, I got my computer here for notes because I can't possibly remember all of this. Please, 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 whatever I talk about in this section, if you have your own opinions and you know something that I'm missing, throw it down in the comment section below for anybody who might be looking at this video down the road so that, you know, if there's anything missed, people can use it. I have this broken down into a couple different categories. Fluids, complete refresh on all the fluids in the vehicle, from engine oil to the differential fluids to all the greases on any Zerk fittings with the drive lines and fill in the blank. The coolant system, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. All the brake fluid, which we'll also talk a little bit more about. Anything fluid-wise on the vehicle is kind of its own little thing. Fluids are one of the best ways to do preventative maintenance on any vehicle. The one fluid I am not going to touch is in the transmission. A lot of Toyotas, and these ones specifically, have a lifetime transmission, from what Toyota calls them. It's not that you can't do a service on them. A lot of people are wary of doing them because you can end up flushing debris and shavings, metal shavings and whatever, into places and then burning up your transmission. Next category I've broken this down into is drivetrain and powertrain. So the engine and everything really that makes it move and turn from here to the wheels. Some of the things you have to do on these vehicles: every 100,000 miles, you got to do a timing belt and a water pump. You can usually find a timing belt maintenance sticker somewhere on this front clip. Mine's right there. It'll tell you when it was done last. I am going to be doing the timing belt on this, even though it was done 50,000 miles ago, because I, again, just want to know that it's good from the point that I've had it and that it was done properly. While you're doing that job, you'll automatically be replacing all the coolant in your system, so that's part of the fluid side that we just covered a second ago. And while I'm doing that job, I am going to be replacing the steering pump as well, because I bought one. I'm getting a little bit of a whine side to side. I don't think it's anything terrible, but this thing's got 250,000 miles. I just figured while I'm in there, I'm going to replace the steering pump with a remanufactured one from my buddy over there at Freelance Fab. Replacing all my coolant lines, replacing some of the plastic T-fittings in the systems, thermostat to make sure it's running at the proper temperature, spark plugs, doing the differential, at least the rear differential breather relocations. That basically just relocates the little valve breather that allows the air to equalize in your differential higher up. So when you're doing water crossings or anything like getting debris possibly in there, it gives it a less of a chance of getting clogged up. I'm going to be replacing the driver's side needle bearing because why not? You can get some slop in that from what I understand, and you just replace it with, I can't even remember what it's called, but I'll link it down below. You replace it with a different component that just holds up longer and better. One of those opportunistic upgrade things. I'm going to rebuild my CV axles and reboot them with a high angle aftermarket option that fits these axles. It's a Porsche of some sort. I'll link it down below. I wanted to take the opportunity to dive into axles a little bit deeper than I ever have so I can understand them better. And also this gives me the added benefit of getting those spare axles that I can then have an additional one in the Tundra and hopefully in the Sequoia if it's not too much additional weight. I can't imagine it's going to be over like 15, 20 pounds. Another category of maintenance for me is stopping, steering, and suspension. All right, tires, arguably one of the most important aspects to any vehicle, especially when you're talking about an adventure overland vehicle, is the appropriate tires. The appropriate tires for road conditions, the appropriate tires for all around the use that you're gonna have for it, and the appropriate size. I have not decided what I'm going to do with tires, but these off-brand Westlakes have got to go. I'm thinking I'm probably gonna stick with a 33. I have a set of Cooper's STT Pros on the Tundra in a 255 ADR 17. I really like that size. I want to go up to a 35 in the Tundra, not because I have to, because I just want to, but going up to a 35, I think you get into just an area of needing to re-gear at that point. I don't have the funds to re-gear this thing. So I'm going to stick with a 33, and I don't know what brand I'm going to go with. I mean, I've had pretty good luck with the Coopers. I've looked at Yokohama. I've looked into the Falcon Wild Peak, the AT4s, and I think they just came out with a new something or other. I'm definitely going to stick with an all-terrain. I'm not going to go with a mud terrain. I might go with some sort of hybrid. Tires are going to be a big choice that I still need to figure out. I have the money set aside. I just haven't made a decision on brand yet, but I think I have decided on a Tulski. If I had an endless budget, I'd probably swap out my wheels for some Method bead grips in like a -12 or a -10 offset would be the appropriate offset for these vehicles. I don't have that money right now. So I did go with some spacers. I think they're 1 1/4. Same spacers I have on the Tundra. I've always heard hub-centric is what you want to make sure you have. Obviously torque everything down appropriately. Next thing on this thing is going to be an opportunistic upgrade I'm going to take for doing a Lexus GX 460 brake upgrade on this. It's just replacing kind of the sluggish brakes that these things are known to have, the first generation Sequoias and Tundras, with larger calipers, larger rotors, bigger brake pads, just more stopping power surface area there. And then at the same time, I am going to be replacing a lot of the brake lines, the flexible brake lines, to the Crown Performance braided like 7-layer brake line kit that they have for these Sequoias. I don't know if they have it on their website. You might have to call them and special order it. Lower ball joints on these things, it's recommended to do every 100,000 miles. And actually for me, my applications and doing some off-roading and all that, I'm going to do it every 75,000 miles. When you're doing this, everybody in the world says replace it with OEM. Or you can look into upgrades to different systems to delete that lower ball joint, but I mentioned it before, I have a leaking steering rack in this thing, so I'm replacing it with that upgraded one from Freelance Fab. I'm also doing the steering pump. At the same time, I'm going to be doing the outer tie rod ends. I'm going to be doing at least the front wheel bearings. I'm going to be replacing and upgrading the upper control arm, the coilovers. I'm going to be doing the rear airbag delete on the rear axle in these things because it's just a common failure point. And I want to alleviate as many potential failures as possible. And in the whole upgrade I'm doing to the suspension, I'm looking to get probably like a 2-inch lift is kind of what I'm shooting for. And I know it's going to improve the ride quality on this thing because the suspension in here is pretty damn clapped out, as well as be able to accommodate the additional weight that this thing is going to have in it once it's fully built out. All right, let's send this thing home. So the last category we're going to talk about is kind of like the comfort and convenience category. And this will just cover all of that and any odds and ends, different things that kind of I want to address on bringing this thing up to snuff. Headlights. These things are glazed over. They're just destroyed. I'm going to buy some new headlight housings, and I'm going to take the opportunity to do a projector retrofit. I will definitely be doing a video how to do that. I don't know if it's every single first gen Sequoia or just the limited versions, but the headlights are always on, and there's like a diode underneath the hood that you can get rid of. You can just unplug, from what I understand, and make it so it actually turns off and turns on based on where you're setting it on the stick clicker there. My seat belts don't retract quite the way I want them to, so I'm going to take that assembly apart and clean it properly. Obviously, you want to swap out your windshield wipers, both the front two and the single one in the back. I've heard you want to clean the AC evaporator and like the squirrel cage under here. These things don't have cabin air filters, although there are people who 3D print them that you can kind of add in later. I hear you want to properly clean the throttle body and the mass airflow sensor. I am going to dive underneath and just really inspect the frame to make sure I don't have any missed spots that are starting to have any more rust accumulation than I find acceptable. And then lastly on that list that I can think of is the rear hatch lever or release. The handle itself on these things is very well known to like bust off. And that leaves you pretty much having to dive into the plastics and get real creative in opening it from the inside so that you can fix it. There's a modification that you can get to replace that mechanism with a little lever mechanism that relocates it down at the gap, the bottom gap of the door I'm gonna do, as well as there's no interior standard latch to unhook and open the door from the inside of the vehicle. And since I'm planning on sleeping on the inside of this vehicle at times, I need to have some way to do that. So the same kit that I will link down to in the description below comes with an aftermarket solution for that. So that's the list of maintenance that I'm going to do on this vehicle to do all the proper service and the opportunistic upgrades that come along in that process that we talked about before, to hopefully get this thing up to just a very reliable baseline for me to then start modifying. On the next video in the Sequoia build series, I'm really going to be diving into my personal build philosophy when it comes to overland rigs and the build philosophy that I'm going to be using when I'm outfitting this guy, touching on how I prioritize all the modifications and upgrades I'm going to be doing to the vehicle from start to finish. If you want to see the entire list of everything I talked about today, please feel free to go down in the description section of this video. I promise I'm not spamming people with emails, but you know, any opportunities or promotions or anything that come in the future, I'd be able to send out to you if you go over there and join the emailing list. I'd really appreciate it. Other than that, I appreciate you guys sticking through this video. It was a little bit of a long one. Have a nice day.